All right, I think I'm just going to get started. I'm so excited to meet you guys. I think this is going to be a really great session. So my name is Neha Shukla. I'm 16 years old and I live in the United States. I'm super passionate about using science and technology to solve problems in the world. And I'm really excited to share with you guys some tips that I learned about the innovation process so that you guys can compete with your ideas and really make a big difference in the world. Okay, so the agenda for today is kind of a little bit about me and what I've learned through innovation, tips and advice for creating STEM innovations and taking you through the innovation process. And then lastly, like a live Q&A with me so you can ask any questions about my process or any questions I had throughout the presentation. Okay. So this summer, I created a social distancing device called 6FeetApart to slow the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic. So essentially, it uses the latest developments in ultrasonic technology and artificial intelligence to alert the user of nearby unsafe social distancing. So here is the ultrasonic sensor embedded inside the hat. And inside is all the circuitry and the wires and the battery and everything. So essentially it uses a microcontroller to alert you if somebody crosses that social distancing 6-foot range. So I'm hoping to save a lot of lives with this device. And essentially you can kind of just wear it and it lets you know, it beeps and vibrates when somebody comes within that 6-foot detection range. So essentially it's a really interesting way to kind of go about solving that social distancing problem. So I've got a lot of recognition for my work, including being featured on the Nasdaq, the New York Times, a lot of different newspapers and TV shows and everything like that. And the reason I'm sharing this with you is I really want to help you guys maximize your potential and take whatever ideas that you have and really push it out into the world and make a really big impact on society by solving problems and by using science and technology to do so. So I'm really, really grateful for all of the support. And I think that you guys can definitely do this too. If I can do this, really anybody can do this. Okay, so how does my device work? So essentially 6FeetApart sends out these short pulses of ultrasonic waves out into the environment through the sensor. And what happens with the sensor is when these waves collide with a person within the 6-foot detection range, the hat starts beeping and vibrating, which alerts the user that somebody has crossed that 6-foot detection range. And so I'm also working on a mobile app that gives these notifications through a cell phone. And, you can send those notifications to your doctor. So that's kind of what I'm working on right now. And here's like a really quick demo of my device in action. That kind of gives you an idea of how it would work in real life. And I'm currently working on integrating infrared imaging and artificial intelligence in the device to better differentiate between humans and objects because of the heat difference given off by humans and objects in infrared radiation. So that's kind of what I'm working on right now and using artificial intelligence, convolutional neural networks to, identify that a little bit better and work on increasing the accuracy. But enough about me, let's get into the good stuff, how you guys can use innovation to solve problems. So I really think that innovation is not just about using technology. It's not just about using engineering or math. It's about solving problems. It's about finding out what is the best way to solve that problem and going to solve that. For instance, if the best way to solve a problem is through activism and giving speeches about the problem, then that's what you should do. So really, it's about kind of figuring out the best and most novel and new way to solve a problem. Okay, so this is a little bit of me in action creating 6FeetApart. Right now, I have a portfolio of 3 devices, but it really started out with just a microprocessor and a sensor and a bunch of wires. And it really just started off as a bunch of components and an idea. This whole innovation journey was driven by a passion and an idea and the drive to solve a problem. I saw how COVID-19 was affecting my community, and I knew this is something that I wanted to address with my device. So it really starts off with having that passion for whatever you do. So if your passion is with swimming, or if your passion is with music, then figure out ways to solve problems that you face every day with your passions. So these are my first 3 key tips of innovation. Okay, so the first tip is feedback. Feedback is such a key part of this process. You can't grow your idea without feedback. And I know sometimes feedback can be a little bit harsh and it's difficult to take it, but we need to have a growth mindset in order to take feedback. So I think a big part of it is asking people, experts, industry experts in fields that you're passionate about, and asking them to evaluate your project and kind of see how you can improve it in the future. And that was a huge part of how I was able to grow 6 Feet Apart and really mold it to how the customers want it to be. The second key part of the process is mentorship. Mentorship is the reason why I'm speaking with you here today. Honestly, mentors are such a big part of the process. They let you really understand the industry better. And as children, I feel like we have the imagination it takes to solve a problem, but we really, really need mentors to guide us through the process. And so they can evaluate your project and give you feedback. They can introduce you to other industry experts in the field. They can really help you take your project to the next level and really change your trajectory. And the last thing is impact. The biggest thing you need to do when you're considering which problem you need to solve is impact. How big of a scope does it have to impact people? So 2 things in terms of impact. You should think about, is your project feasible? Meaning, can you actually do it? So if you're saying, I want to solve poverty in the entire world, can you do that at this stage? And the answer is probably no, but can you impact poverty in a local level? Yes. So kind of thinking about the scale of how many people you can impact and then also how feasible your project actually is. So those are 3 really key tips to keep in mind throughout the innovation process. Now, these are just tips. What is the actual innovation process itself, and how can you guys get started with it? So innovation is really all about creating change and building the world that we want to see. So the first part of innovation, the first step of the innovation process is to investigate. The second step is innovate, and the third step is ignite. So this is kind of an overall understanding of what each of the 3 steps are. So I'm just going to give a little summary, and then we can go deeper into each of the steps. So the first step is investigate. And in investigate, really, we're looking to understand the problem, do research, kind of figure out which problem we want to address, and really be very committed to that. The second step is innovate. And a big part of innovation is also replicating. You don't want to reinvent the wheel. If some technology already exists out there that makes your life easier, use it and really build upon what's already there in the market. And the last step is ignite. So really communicating your ideas, working with companies and saying, how can I get this either out to the market, or how can I improve my idea or my device, and how can I refine it and really get it to that next level? And communication is such a big part of it, because unless people have awareness and really care about your solution, you're not going to be able to take it to that next level. Okay, so investigate. The first step for investigate is kind of understanding your problem. And I like to call this first principles thinking. So in first principles thinking, you need to keep asking why. Why is this a problem? Why? And when you ask why enough times, you're going to get to a stage where you've asked why enough times and you find the real solution, the real problem that you need to address. And the next step of that is narrowing down your research. So when you're researching, I like to think about it as kind of this upside down pyramid. So you start off by building your foundation in the topic. So suppose you're trying to learn about the Internet of Things. Maybe go on YouTube and write IoT for beginners and kind of watch a tutorial on that. So start off by building the most basic knowledge base, read some For Dummies books and kind of get really into that. And then the next step would be going on Google Scholar, going on MIT Tech Review and saying, okay, let's go a little bit deeper and kind of understand a little bit more of the technology behind it. And lastly, then go into ResearchGate and then go into research papers and kind of read the specifics. But it's really, really important to build our knowledge base from the foundation. So going from the bottom up. Okay, so I think this is an interesting idea to think about in terms of both the research side and the first principles thinking. So this is a pretty good example. Many of us think that climate change is a problem, but it's not actually a problem. Climate change is just an outcome. And it's an outcome of so many different factors, including increasing greenhouse gases, including a variety of other factors, depletion of oil resources and things like that. So we can't just say, I want to solve climate change. We have to think about which problems are the underlying root causes of climate change, and then which of those can we actually solve. So it's really interesting. You have to keep asking why. So why is climate change a thing? Why is oil mining a thing? Why is that a thing? And then looking, renewable energy is more of a solution rather than climate change. So it's interesting to think about it that way. The second step is innovate. So when you're doing innovation, it's really, really an iterative process. And as you can see by this diagram, it doesn't just end at a certain place. You always continue innovating. And so for 6 Feet Apart, I've never stopped innovating. Every single day I work on it, trying to get it better and trying to both increase the accuracy and increase the customer user experience. So really trying to improve it every single day. And in the innovation process, you can kind of look at it as the engineering or design process, but it's really just about define the problem. We kind of did that already with Investigate, plan solutions. That's kind of what we did with Investigate. But now Innovate is all about building. So build solutions, build a prototype, whether it be a physical prototype, like how I built like the actual hardware for my device, or it could be a paper prototype using specific like UI, UX design softwares online. So it's really all about building your solution and then reiterating on it. So this is the part where feedback comes most in hand. So you get your mentors and you ask them, what do you think about my idea? What do you think about my physical prototype? And you keep building to see how feasible your solution is and keep on going. So I listed some really interesting tools to just get you started to the innovation process, including Arduino, Python, of course. I feel like all of you guys are very fluent with the language, but then also the last two are some more unusual ones they probably haven't heard of. So if any of you guys are interested in biology or want to be doctors, think about different tools. So if you want to be a doctor, think about other tools like genetic engineering. Benchling is an online tool that you can use to actually do gene editing online. It's really a great tool to get started. And if you're interested in potentially researching into medicine or becoming a doctor, this is a great way to get started with biomedical engineering. And on the other end, if you're super into physics and math, the Qiskit is a really, really good software online created by IBM for quantum computing. So it's a really great way to kind of do quantum computing simulations. And you don't have to be a genius to do any of these things. All it takes is somebody who has a passion and a drive for solving problems and also for bettering themselves. By doing all of these steps, you're building yourself up. Now you have skills on how to identify problems. You have skills on how to reach out to people as mentors. You have all these different skills which will come in use, really, really be useful in life. So these are some tools that you can use to innovate and build solutions. The last step is Ignite. And I think this one is kind of simple. It looks simple, but it's actually one of the most important steps. A lot of my friends have built solutions to problems, but people just don't know about it. And I think this step can often be overlooked, but we need to communicate our solutions, whether it be creating a YouTube video about how you made your device and how you're solving a problem, or an article on Medium explaining how you've done something, or simple meetings or conferences, whatever you can do to socialize your idea and kind of get it out in the open is the best way to make your idea more acceptable and to actually get it in production or get it out in the real world. So I think a big part of this process is the difference between innovation and entrepreneurship. So I've kind of dabbled a little bit in both. And I think innovation gets you an amazing product in the lab, but without entrepreneurship, it's going to stay in the lab. It can't help anybody. So you really need to think about, how can I get my solution out into the real world and actually have it save lives and help other people? So a great way to do this is actually sharing your content so that people who can potentially take it to the next level, like venture capitalists or business leaders, can see your work and actually bring it to the next level. And then you can partner with companies to really get your ideas out in the market. And I think this is a really, really fun part now. Once you have your solution kind of built, competing with your ideas is a really, really great way to firstly get market validation. So you know that your research is really valuable and that people actually care about the problem that you're solving. But it's also a really just a fun experience. I've done a lot of these competitions and I've got to say they're all really, really great experiences. So I'm just going to go across the list. There's ISEF, the International Science and Engineering Fair. I'm sure you guys have probably heard of it. It's a really prestigious way to show off your scientific research. And the Conrad Foundation has this annual Conrad Challenge. It's a really fun way to just work with the team, solve problems, and get a lot of scholarships and get a lot of just support from companies who care about empowering youth. There's also the Junior Science and Humanities Symposium. So it's a great way to show off your research. If for students in the US, I'm not sure how applicable this is, but Broadcom Masters is also a great science fair for middle school students. There's East Cyber Mission, the Google Science Fair, and Science Olympiad, and among many others. There's so many competitions for science and engineering for students out there. But really, by applying steps like the 3 tips that we talked about of feedback, mentorship, and impact, and also following the innovate, ignite, and investigate steps, you can really get to a place where you're competing with your ideas and being really successful in these type of fields. And in terms of entrepreneurship, I've had a good amount of experience with entrepreneurship. And even though it's a very different field, it follows the similar steps as innovation. I have a mentor in entrepreneurship who's so passionate about the work that she does. And she always invites me to speak at conferences or invites me to help with investor calls and things like that. So having somebody, an adult who really is passionate about the work that you're doing, you guys can really uplift each other. Your mentor can uplift you in terms of getting you speaking opportunities and getting you ways to share your idea, but you also are impacting your mentor because now you're sharing your ideas with them. You're inspiring people that they're talking to. And for adults, it's really, really inspiring to see that youth are making a difference in the community. And so that's something that really, really can kick off your innovation journey and really get people excited to work with you. Okay, so now we can have like a little bit of a live Q&A. I know I gave out a lot of information, but if you guys have any questions about kind of my process, how I got to speak at the conference board, how I got to be on the New York Times or anything at all, or more about my future endeavors. I'm doing a lot of different things with science and technology and like the next steps. Any questions that you have, I'd love to answer them.
Hi, Neha. So I have a question. How did you meet your mentor?
That's a great question. I actually met my mentor through a program called Girls with Impact. So I took this online entrepreneurship academy called the Girls with Impact. I can put it in the chat. It is a really, really great way to start with that innovation process. And they really drill that into entrepreneurship. It's an international academy that you can take online. It's a really, really great way for young women to just get started with entrepreneurship and innovation. And they actually give you mentors by the end of the program. So it's a really, really great way to get to know people. And I'm working with the CEO of the company to kind of scale the company and also get the message of innovation and entrepreneurship out to girls across the world. So it's really great to speak with you guys. But I really recommend joining programs that foster your creativity and foster your innovation so that you can actually get out in the world and be able to solve these problems. The best way to get mentors is also by cold emailing and just asking people. So if you guys have LinkedIn, if anybody's from high school, you probably have LinkedIn, or if not, just go online and look up leaders in the companies that you're passionate about. So if you guys want to work in Google when you're older, maybe look up Google technical manager and see people in your local area that you can maybe go on a phone call with or an email with and kind of get to know people more. And people are so excited to be mentors of young people who are just excited about science and technology.
Hi, Neha. This is Nick. Great presentation. Quick question for you. You talked about some of your future endeavors that you have planned. I'd like to hear about those. What do you got going on?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for the question. So right now I'm working on building out the app for 6 Feet Apart and kind of scaling it. I'm working with a couple of companies to get it one step closer to being out in the market. I'm also looking at potentially working with vaccine distribution in my app. So it's a lot of different factors for 6 Feet Apart. But outside of that, I've worked on different projects, including working on, so my grandmother actually had a really bad fall a while back, I think last winter, and it was really sad to see. So she actually fell down and hurt her face and almost fractured some bones. And it showed a huge problem, which is that the elderly lose mobility and they lose control and they can fall down and really hurt themselves. And it's really kind of it's once it starts, it's like a crescendo effect. It gets worse and worse just by one incident of falling. So I wanted to do something to kind of prevent that, and as a preventative approach to mobility loss. So I kind of asked myself, why is mobility loss an issue? How is this happening? And I kind of narrowed it down to gait analysis. So people's gait, or the way that they walk, is kind of deteriorates as you grow older. So I created a predictive analytics approach to analyzing gait and preventing mobility loss at an early stage. So that's kind of what I'm working on right now. I'm kind of digging deeper into gene editing and a couple of other exponential technologies. So I'm super excited. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Very cool.
Thank you. I see a question in the chat. Okay. So Shoyo says, hello, how did you take the first step in pursuing 6 Feet Apart? I know a lot of people have ideas and I don't think it's possible to create anything. With it. So is there a Kickstarter that helped you? That's a really great question. I think the biggest thing that helped me pursue 6 Feet Apart was, it was more of a collection of different events that kind of hit me at once. And I realized this is a huge problem. Our schools had shut down, I think, a week or two before. And I just saw the direct impact on my community. Everybody was at home. At that point, we didn't have computers distributed, so a lot of my classmates didn't actually have technology to go to school. And just there were so many impacts of COVID-19. And then every time I turn on the news, it's like the numbers going higher and higher and higher. And it was just seeing that exponential growth of cases, and then also seeing the direct impact on my community and people going to the hospital. And there were so many things that kind of led up to that moment where I was like, no, I have to do something about this. And then the last thing was kind of seeing that I have the power to solve problems. Like, I really recently had learned about these type of technologies. So seeing that, you know what, I know that I'm only 15. I was only 15 at the time. I'm only 15, but I still have the power to solve this problem. And even if I don't solve the entire problem, I'm making a big difference. So that was the biggest part that helped me. And I think for you, really, you can get inspired by anything and everything. You just have to find what drives you and what motivates you.
Okay, so I think that's going to be it for this session because we have a time limit. Thank you so much all for coming, and thank you, Neha, for speaking. This is a wonderful session, and I hope you guys all got inspired in some sort of way. And also, we're looking forward to our next session, so please stay in tune to the group chat. And thank you again to Neha. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much. It was great talking to you guys. Bye.